Welcome to the Hall of Records, located at 220 Broadway Street in sunny Los Angeles, California. This building will be turning 115 years old this year. But if you want to visit it today, your only option is booting up Team Bondi's 2011 game, Noire. Why, you may ask, can you only visit this marvel of architecture and early American style in-game? Why can't I get on a plane, fly to California, and get a $200 Uber from LAX to 220 Broadway Street? Well, the answer to that requires some context and a vague understanding of the socio-political climate of 1960s and 70s Los Angeles. I'm getting ahead of myself. I've always been fascinated with games that are set in our world. Not a fictionalized version of our world, but the actual cities and places you can go to and walk around in real life. And within that genre, there are games that try to recreate a specific point in history, giving you a virtual tour of life in 1800s France or 1200s Japan. But very few games are able to reach the authenticity and scale of Rockstar published and Team Bondi developed Noire. For the uninitiated, Noire is an open-world, third-person shooter set in 1947 Los Angeles, where you follow war veteran Cole Phelps through various crimes and police desks throughout the city. Now, what sets Noire apart from Rockstar's other open-world titles is that instead of creating the essence of Los Angeles, with its tongue-in-cheek Los Santos, Noire's game world is Los Angeles, complete with famous landmarks, parks, restaurants, and movie theaters around the downtown LA and Hollywood Boulevard areas. And that's just scratching the surface. Here is the current-day map of Los Angeles, and here is the map of Noire. Almost every road and street in the 11 square mile distance from Hollywood Boulevard to the Los Angeles River is a near one-to-one with its real-life counterpart. But they didn't just take the Google Maps layout and slap a sepia filter on it. They did something different. Here is the Noire map overlaid on a 1944 Thomas Brothers map of Los Angeles, California. All of these weirdly angled streets, this circular road in downtown, all of it a perfect match to the 1940s. This is potentially the single most accurate open world in a video game outside of Microsoft Flight Simulator. Almost every street, drive along a road, intersection, bridge, and tunnel from 1947 Los Angeles is present in Noire. I don't know, another game in existence where I can drive to, 3050 Wilshire Boulevard. And if I go to my real-world Google Maps and type in 3050 Wilshire Boulevard and go into Street View, I will see the same building as I do in game. I don't think another game has ever existed like that. It's so accurate that the building on the corner of West 2nd and Spring Street is under construction. Why does that make it accurate? Because that building would later become the Mirror Building, an addition to the Los Angeles Times building on the same block. Not to be confused with the Times Mirror Press building around the corner. The Mirror was the afternoon edition of the popular LA Times newspaper, and the Mirror building was built on the site of the old 1880s Nadeau Hotel and didn't finish construction until October 1948, a year after the game was set, thus making it under construction. In-game, there are 30 landmarks to visit of real-world places. The community has also compiled a list of 245 additional historical landmarks from 1947. And on top of that, there's also a list of 274 real-world businesses and buildings. In total, there are almost 550 real-world places recreated in Noire. If you're interested in how accurate Noire's map really is, leave a comment down below and maybe I'll make a video about it. But it's not just that the map is accurate. Every outfit, fountain, stoplight, police box, advertisement, automobile, political ad, school, body of water, cemetery, bowling alley, fruit stand, bank, fire station, police station, business, church, hotel, TV station, radio tower, nightclub, restaurant, diner, bar, streetcar terminal building, and eye-catching architecture is sourced from a real-world counterpart, each having its own historical and cultural impact on the greater Los Angeles in 1947. And while there are far too many details to get into today, I do want to touch on a few pieces of history in Noire's faithful reconstruction of a place and time no longer of access to us. Places lost to the march of time, history covered up by progress and concrete, and shameful parts of Los Angeles' past reworked to make for an entertaining final act of the game. So put down your textbooks because I'm going to give you a little history lesson straight from LA Noire to you. Also, spoiler for like all of LA Noire, so if you haven't played the game before, pause the video, go play through all 20 or so hours, and come back. In order to understand the LA of LA Noire, you first need to know a bit of Los Angeles history. The Los Angeles area was originally inhabited by the Gabrielino Tongva people, and they called the region Ya. They built villages and towns in the Los Angeles basin and fished along the Los Angeles River. When Europeans first met the Tongva people in 1542, they traded their fish for manual labor of the European and Mexican colonists. In 1781, the first settlement was established along the Los Angeles River by a group of 44 Black, Native American, and various mixed settlers, along with 4 Spanish-Mexican soldiers. This small settlement began establishing churches, building small structures, and by 1821, it had grown to a sizable farming community. After the Mexican independence movement in 1821, the town tripled in size and by 1841 had a population of over 1,600. As the town grew, the native population relocated their village several times, having their population racked by diseases carried by the European settlers in the area. In 1846, the Mexican-American War began, and by 1847, Los Angeles and California were ceded by Mexico to the U.S. When California became incorporated into the U.S., Native Americans were supposed to be granted citizenship as per the treaty signed after the war. It took over 80 years to be granted citizenship. Without U.S. citizenship protection, many Native Americans were subjected to horrible living conditions, stolen land, and even being killed and hunted. As activist for the Native American struggles Helen Hunt Jackson wrote in her 1883 stay in Los Angeles, quote, "It was easy to see that the killing of Indians was not a very dangerous thing to do." End quote. While the Tongva people are still around today, the tribe has less than 2,000 members. Alongside the Native American struggle, the city of Los Angeles ballooned in population to over 100,000 by 1900. The central business district, what is now downtown Los Angeles, boomed, with office buildings, hotels, and businesses lining the crowded streets as streetcars and traffic parted the seas of people. Chinatown, built in the 1860s to the northeast of the central business district, housed many of Los Angeles' Chinese population, which had grown to over 3,000 people by 1900 due to the influx of Chinese immigrants to work on the Transcontinental Railroad. In 1871, 18 Chinese men and boys were lynched by a mob of 500 men, some of whom were deputized by the sheriff, in what became known as the Chinese Massacre. Old Chinatown was built in the area now inhabited by Union Station. A 1926 ballot measure to build Union Station was pushed by the city, and as an LA Times editorial bluntly put it, quote, "The Union Depot plan spells the passing of Chinatown and its rookeries into the dim history of early Los Angeles, just as the old buildings are being torn down on Main Street and Spring Street near Temple Street to make room for the new City Hall." End quote. It went on to make a very poignant point for this video in particular. Quote, "Chinatown is doomed by the march of the Greater Los Angeles Civic Center and the Union Depot." End quote. The Chinatown scene in game is correct to 1947, as the new Chinatown was built there in 1938. To the west of Chinatown sat the Pueblo de Los Angeles, the original settlement from back in 1777. The surrounding area had become known as Sonora Town in the 1800s and had become home to many of the Mexican population of Los Angeles. Alongside Chavez Ravine to the northeast, many in these areas were impoverished by the lack of opportunities non-white people were afforded, and by the turn of the century, these neighborhoods dealt with overcrowding and disease at a much higher rate than their white neighbors. I promise, we'll get back to the game in a minute. As the city continued to grow, it began annexing and consolidating many of the Tongva villages surrounding it. With the discovery of oil in 1892, by the 20th century, Los Angeles had exploded in size. Hollywood, to the northwest of the downtown area, became the premier location for the creation of the latest in entertainment, moving pictures, or movies. In response to a series of floods and droughts, the Los Angeles aqueducts were built to divert and supply water to the valley. The concrete sides of the Los Angeles River you can see in game are still there today, and are used to help with floodwater controls. The Great Depression brought many new people to Los Angeles looking for a new start, and in 1932, LA hosted the Summer Olympics. After World War II, the economy and population of Los Angeles exploded again, which brings us to the year 1947, the setting of LA Noire. I told you we'd get back. So now that you know the entire history of LA, let's begin. Take a trip with me back in time, all the way to 1911. Los Angeles is growing exponentially, and with that growth came an increase in everyone's favorite: paperwork. The courthouse, which had been built in 1891, was filling up with paperwork, and in order to alleviate it, the city built this. Welcome back to the Hall of Records, famous for its Gothic towers, red terracotta roofing, pyramid gables, narrow and tall windows, and copper ribbing. According to the Los Angeles Magazine, quote, architects Frank Hudson and William Munsell divided its upper floors into two pairs of wings which joined at a central elevator shaft, end quote. The Hall of Records cost $1.5 million to build in 1911, the equivalent to just under $50 million today, or about 25 PlayStation 5 Pros. The red sandstone courthouse next door to the Hall of Records was unfortunately damaged in the Long Beach earthquake of 1933 and was demolished 3 years later, leading to its absence from LA Noire. Since we haven't had enough detours in this video already, I want to share with you one of my favorite lost relics of LA's history. This is the Court Flight Cable Railway, not to be confused with the more famous and in-game Angels Flight. Across the street from the Hall of Records, Court Flight existed from 1905 to 1943. It began as a way of bringing the affluent residents of Bunker Hill down to the courthouse for work. It ran 180 feet up the hill at a 53-degree grade, and at the time, it was considered the steepest and shortest railway in the world. After years of declining rides, coupled with many of the richer residents moving away from Bunker Hill, the railway fell into decline, and on Wednesday, October 20th, 1943, a discarded cigarette caught the overgrowth bush around the tracks on fire, and the Court Flight incline was destroyed. Which is why it never appeared in-game. In LA Noire, the Hall of Records is one of the few landmarks featured in multiple cases: the Quarter Moon murders from the homicide desk and a polite invitation from the arson desk. Upon entering the large lobby, you are greeted by a grand staircase spanning 3 floors, and looking up, you'll see glasswork depicting a mountain cave overgrown with plants and wildflowers and a waterfall chandelier hanging downwards over the lobby. Information vital to solving the Quarter Moon murders, as a clue has been left on the chandelier. In A Polite Invitation, playing as Jack Kelso, you're tasked with learning more about the Suburban Redevelopment Fund and are able to look through the registry books for clues regarding the shady dealings. You can also return to the building anytime in free roam to explore. There's another room of filing cabinets not used by any cases and serves to help make the building feel more alive and worked in. Now, I can't speak to the accuracy of the interior of the building, as there are no full photographs of the lobby, the stained glass, nor any of the record rooms. But I do know somebody who can. Everyone, meet Alan Simon, a Los Angeles County public defender for over 35 years, who has personally been inside the Hall of Records and has a recollection of the building.
Hi, my name is Alan Simon. I'm 87 years old. My career was that of a Los Angeles County public defender. I started in the office during the Watts riots in 1965. My focus and expertise was on mental health laws that interacted with the criminal justice system. My memory of the interior is very vague. It seemed to me to be a rather plain building. It was an office building. If it's as plain as I think it was, so there probably wasn't any real incentive to do any filming in there. I remember the insides of the courts were very spacious. The photographs that you see of the Hall of Justice are of the lobby, which was beautiful. It had a lot of marble in it. Hey, it was an interesting lobby.
So here's the old Hall of Records, and there's City Hall in the background. This was what they imagined the Hall of Records to look like. Does any of this look familiar, or?
Not at all, but it could be. You know, at that time I wasn't that much interested in the buildings. I mean, this looks, I don't have any recollection of this. This would be certainly worth a film crew to use as a setting. If it looked like that, I think I would remember it. I mean, this is magnificent.
Yes.
Maybe they ought to build this. There has to be a bank of elevators, a lot of people going to different floors, and they would have all been manually operated by elevator operators. I never went into any of the offices in that building. I'm sure I took the elevator up to the court. That's where my first office was, on the 4th floor there. And see those pillars up at top? The jail was behind that. The common belief was that the architect made those pillars as a symbol of the jail, which was behind it. Only building I've ever seen with pillars at the top rather than the bottom.
Thanks for talking with us, Alan. It's definitely unfortunate that the interior of the Hall of Records didn't look how the game portrayed it, which does make sense. If the building's lobby and interior really did look like this, chances are there would certainly be more photos. From the extensive research I did on various archives, I was only able to find a handful of photos of the inside. Many of them were close-ups with very little details in the backgrounds to get an accurate picture of the real-life Hall of Records. But regardless of the authenticity of its interior, the exterior and building itself stood as an architectural wonder in downtown Los Angeles for over 60 years. In the late 1950s, talks of building a new Hall of Records had begun, and the city settled on architect Richard Neutra to design the new one. At the cost of $13.7 million, around $147 million today, or about 45 PlayStation 5 Pros, the project was complete in 1962, one block away from the old Hall of Records. Remember that cool photo montage of the Hall of Records going back in time? Well, here is 1956 before its construction, 1959 before its completion, and 1962 after its opening. So, as of 1962, the city of Los Angeles had 2 Hall of Records. All right. I know what we've all been thinking. There's no getting around it. This building is a little off. No, literally, it's not straight with the rest of the street. Why is that? Back in the 1910s, the Hall of Records was built on what was then known as Pound Cake Hill. By the 1920s, as the central business district expanded and the city grew, Spring Street, shown here in an 1868 map of Los Angeles, came out of Main Street at an angle. Today, the road is parallel with Main Street. In the 1920s, Spring Street was realigned with the rest of the CBD grid, and New High Road, the road that sat perpendicular to the back of the Hall of Records, was erased from the area and replaced with the new Spring Street, leaving the building at an odd 23-degree angle from the 2 roads bookending it. Now, back to the present of 1962. A few years after completion of the new Hall of Records, work began on the new Criminal Courts building built directly in the parking lot of the old Hall of Records building, finishing construction in 1971. And this thing was crowding the old Hall of Records. I mean, look at this shit. It's like the new Criminal Courts building had no idea what personal space was. So, in 1972, the old Hall of Records is choked out by a new building built within 10 feet of its walls, encroached for work by its newer, shinier successor a block away, and sitting crooked next to all other buildings in the area. And this is where that 1960s and 70s socio-political climate of Los Angeles comes into play. In that time, many older buildings were being done away with in exchange for quote-unquote progress. Much of Los Angeles' early history had already been lost, but the early 20th century architecture was slowly eroding as well, replaced with parking lots and sleek new high-rise buildings. The county considered rotating the building, but the $5 million price tag ended the talks. And so, in 1973, to little pushback by the city, demolition began on the original Hall of Records. The estimated cost for tearing down the building was $600,000. After a few months, all that was left was a blacktop parking lot. They literally paved paradise and put up a parking lot. So, what is it now? Well, there's only one way to find out. So I bought a plane ticket and flew to Los Angeles.
My heart is a hobo, loves to roam through fields of clover, hates to have to think things over, and though it's...
So I'm out here in Los Angeles and, Google Earth does the same thing, but I don't need to fly out to see what's there? Oh, well, that's nice to know now. So here's City Hall, another landmark in LA Noire, although it isn't accessible, and here's what's across the street. Okay, well, at least it isn't still a parking lot, it's just a park now. Well, that was thoroughly worth the plane ticket. There was a beautification project in 2011 that led the parking lot to being turned into the easternmost section of Grand Park. A little more green in a city is a nice thing, but unfortunately, this came at the cost of a historic building. As someone on Reddit pointed out, if the building had made it a few more years, it might have been saved by the burgeoning interest in historic preservation in the United States during the 70s. Los Angeles didn't begin much of its historical preservation until after 1978, when the city amended the municipal code to allow for historic preservation overlay zones to be created, paving the way for historic districts and heritage sites.
I'm part of Hollywood Heritage, and we have tons of stuff on Hollywood Boulevard. We just celebrated our 40th anniversary. We're very active, and unfortunately haven't won all the battles. A lot of it's been destroyed, but it's a National Historic District, and we got that done a long time ago. The Boulevard is. On New Year's, we lost a significant building. It burnt down. The Hollywood Center Hotel that we were in the process of trying to get some control over it by somebody in the city, and it burnt. It's gone.
Unfortunately, Alan's work with Hollywood Heritage and the historical preservation of Los Angeles couldn't spare the Hall of Records from the fate so many other buildings from that time had already suffered from. And Los Angeles is no stranger to this loss in history. One of the most notable casualties from game to present day is the Hollywood Brown Derby restaurant. A landmark in game found on Vine Street now sits as nothing more than a set of different high-rise buildings. The only thing remaining is the iconic front entrance silhouette. The rest has been lost to the same progress that the old Hall of Records was lost to. This is just the most egregious, but many buildings from that time are gone and replaced. The Times Mirror building under construction in game shut down in 1962, and even the beautiful LA Times building around the corner now sits empty as of 2018. Apparently, the entire block is getting demolished and replaced with this. Many of the iconic Art Deco and architecturally significant buildings still standing today sit empty or carved out for luxury condos and apartments, leaving shells of once booming industries to haunt the Hollywood Strip in downtown LA. And LA Noire is now the only way to visit many of these important landmarks. Sure, the interior of the Hall of Records might be different, but that's not the point. I want to go there myself to see how it's different, to see how unexciting and mundane it might be. But nowadays, I can't. A very apt and sad summary of the situation comes from an article about the Courtflight Incline Railway burning down in 1943. Quote, "That's why it didn't matter much yesterday exactly what caused the blaze, or how many fire hoses were needed to put it out. Lawyers, judges, veterans, and public services left their offices to see flame adding their fury to help erase another bit of the past from a streamlined Los Angeles." End quote. It seems as if someone has torn off the top page. If I use Cole Phelps's trick, I should be able to see what it said. Subscribe? What is this? A newspaper? I already get the Los Angeles Inquisitor. What LA Noire does with the Hall of Records is a form of historic preservation. Not an entirely accurate form of historic preservation, but one nonetheless. LA Noire is the only place this building can still be visited, enjoyed, and appreciated today. And no amount of progress or the changing LA landscape can change that. If the Hall of Records is a representation of the past, then this next game detail is a look at a hopeful future of Los Angeles in 1947, the Pacific Electric Railroad, or the Red Car.
Hey, mister, ain't you got a car?
Who needs a car in L.A.? We got the best public transportation system in the world.
Yes, the cars mentioned in Who Framed Roger Rabbit and play a key role in the overarching story are the same red cars that you see clacking by in LA Noire. So let's once again jump into the past, this time back to 1901. At this point, streetcars have been around in LA for over 10 years, but were centralized around downtown and were operated by a few smaller companies. In 1901, Henry Huntington, a name unavoidable in LA nowadays, bought up the few scattered railways and founded the Pacific Electric Railway Company, modeled after San Francisco's very successful cable car network. By 1911, all of the different companies had been consolidated under the Pacific Electric name. Workers' unions pushed back against the merger, and along with racial discrimination against many of the Mexican track layers who were paid poorly, tensions came to a head in the 1919 Los Angeles streetcar strikes. The striking workers walked, others overgreased the car wheels, and some even overturned the cars off the tracks. After a night of civil unrest, the workers were granted better pay, but at the cost of the Pacific Electric Railway avoiding unionization.
What powered the rail lines all around the Los Angeles basin and out of it was real estate. It was all developed by real estate people who wanted to get people out to places where they could buy property and then be able to get back into town because nobody had a car way back then.
Huntington's plan was to buy up tons of unused land way out in the middle of nowhere, lay thousands of miles of tracks, and in a few years had built the world's largest streetcar network with more tracks in 1910 than New York City has today. And because of that, thousands of people looking to take advantage of Los Angeles's boom flooded the outlying lands now connected through the red car.
It spread rail everywhere.
Huntington knew that the streetcar system wasn't going to be profitable forever, and real estate was a much more lucrative endeavor. So, if you'll recall the finale of Who Framed Roger Rabbit, spoiler alert for a 40-year-old movie,
a construction plan of epic proportions. We're calling it a freeway.
Freeway? What the hell's a freeway? Nobody's gonna drive this lousy freeway when they can take the red car for a nickel.
Oh, they'll drive. They'll have to. You see, I bought the red car so I could dismantle it.
So, did that really happen? Well, kind of. In the movie, Doom is building the freeway network we now see in LA today, and in order to do that, they need to get rid of the red cars. In real life, it was many smaller collaborating threats that led to the end of the red car, running its last train in 1961. So, how does this relate to LA Noire? Isn't this a video about a video game? Yes, and I promise we'll get there. The red car was in decline by the 1930s.
They stopped taking them because automobiles became available again after the war.
The expansion of the rail lines had ended, and the land parceled off to the developers had been sold. So the money that the streetcars made from fares was its only source of income. This was Huntington's plan all along, using the red car as a way to make money from real estate, not caring about the loss it incurred. But it wasn't just Huntington to blame. As cars became more popular in the downtown area, streets became clogged with automobile and pedestrian foot traffic. It quickly became a vicious cycle of the red car is too slow because of cars, which means people buy more cars, which makes the red car even slower. There is some truth to Who Framed Roger Rabbit's claim of a larger conspiracy, however. In 1945, a company called National City Lines bought up many of the old yellow line in the downtown area and dismantled them to replace them with buses. Now, what many people did not know at the time was that this company was funded by General Motors of car fame, Firestone Tire of tire fame, Standard Oil, later known as Chevron, and Phillips Petroleum of oil fame. They were indicted and later convicted of conspiracy to monopolize under the Sherman Antitrust Act of 1890, as they had major holdings in almost every major transportation hub in America by the 1940s and intentionally derailed, pun intended, mass rail transportation in favor of buses, which relied on engines, tires, and oil, all funders of the company itself. With this conspiracy at play, along with the crowding of its downtown and Hollywood lines, there was little hope for the red car. By the 1950s, many of the cars had fallen into disrepair, and soon many of the lines were dismantled. Many of them were paved over and erased from the history of Los Angeles. Literally, they ripped up the tracks, and when it became too expensive, they just started paving over them. In LA Noire, the red cars aren't usable, and while the case A Walk in Elysian Fields involves a suspect hijacking a red car to escape on, it's not very interactable in-game. While some suspect the red car to have been some sort of fast travel system cut from the game's final release, I don't think they were ever supposed to be functioning for the character. It wouldn't make sense for Cole Phelps to be hopping on a streetcar in the middle of an active investigation. But its usability isn't what makes their inclusion in LA Noire so important. The red cars of LA Noire once again help preserve a forgotten moment in Los Angeles' history, frozen in time as the sparking and noisy machines that might get in the way every now and again while chasing a suspect through the streets of LA. But if you're in LA today, you would never know that these things were everywhere. They were iconic, and many people in Los Angeles remember them fondly.
Well, they were the network of Los Angeles. Lots and lots of people took them. I used them mostly when I was a little boy. I would travel on them. My family did also. We lived in the San Fernando Valley starting in 1947, and some of our shopping was done in Grand Central Market downtown because it had more to offer than the stores in the valley. We had mass transportation everywhere. And I would go into Hollywood also. And Hollywood was more of a shopping shopping area. It was nice.
Did you ever go to the original Pig and Whistle restaurant before it closed?
I know I walked by it many times. I didn't have the money. I and a friend spent a lot of time in Hollywood going to the bookstores. Hollywood had a lot of bookstores. Big one, of course, was Pickwick on Hollywood Boulevard, which was magnificent, but somewhere out of my price range. Got to see Ella Fitzgerald a whole bunch of times, sometimes sitting so close to her that I got her spittle on me.
Wow.
It was where she really hit it big. Anyway, it was certainly a means of transportation that was reliable. Public transportation was important. I thought it was a big loss to LA when they switched to buses.
The red cars played an important role in the identity of early and mid-century Los Angeles. Their ever-presence in LA Noire is vital to the authenticity of the game. But not only that, vital to the preservation of a history that LA seems to want to forget. Los Angeles now has a metro and train line that stretches from city center to many of the places the original red car ran to, although not nearly as robust and widespread. If LA had kept the red car, made changes to its traffic laws, and potentially nationalized the rail system, they wouldn't have to be spending billions of dollars a year to expand its current lines to where the red car went 100 years ago. LA Noire envisions a future of Los Angeles not attainable anymore, one we're slowly scraping back to with each new mile of track added. Los Angeles currently has 121 miles of track. At its height, Pacific Electric had 1,169 miles of track.
Talked about for more than a decade, but now a subway under the Sepulveda Pass connecting the San Fernando Valley with LA's west side could be one step closer to reality.
Imagine being able to avoid this, the infamous 405 gridlock. After a decade of debate, the Metro Board approved plans for a 13-mile subway under the Sepulveda Pass, linking existing mass transit lines in Van Nuys and West LA. The new subway line would connect 7 stations, but burrowing under the pass is not going to be cheap. The estimated cost between $20 and $25 billion.
7 stops being added to your metro line for the same price of the entire system up to that point? Yeah, there's gotta be a better way to do this, LA. While the red car is non-functioning in game, it functions as a teaching tool and a preservation tool, similar to the Hall of Records. Where are the red cars now? Many were sold for scrap to Australia and Argentina. They piled up a huge bunch of them and let them rot outside of Long Beach. Others were saved by private individuals, and some were sunk into the waters of Redondo Beach, a former stop on the red car itself, to become artificial reefs. So when you see a red car in game, know that you may be seeing some of the last moving and working red cars in the world. In the final act of the game, you are assigned to the arson desk, where you're met with a series of house fires. As you begin to uncover the truth, many of the puzzle pieces from previous desks come into play, and you begin to see a wide web of conspiracies, bribery, murder, and fraud that extends well beyond the individual fires. In your discovery, playing as both Cole Phelps and Jack Kelso, you find that an illegitimate development program called the Suburban Redevelopment Fund was created by Leland Monroe of real estate company Elysian Fields to help funnel money to many of LA's top brass, including the mayor, the police chief, Roy Earl, the detective you work alongside with on the vice desk, the district attorney, the LA Times editor, a famous psychiatric doctor, and the VP of the home insurance company California Fire and Life. The plan was set up as such. Elysian Fields buys a huge swath of land along the path of the proposed Whitnall Freeway. They tear down the homes in the area already developed and begin building their own houses. Monroe purchases materials from the defunct Keystone Film Studio to build the new houses, using unsafe wiring, low-grade mortar, and outdated water heaters to keep the costs down. The new houses were intended for returning soldiers from World War II. In order to keep this all quiet, Monroe bribes the various members of the Suburban Redevelopment Fund with bonds for the company. Knowing the path of the freeway, the investors know that the government will soon be taking the land through a process called eminent domain, where the US government can take land and give its equivalent value to the private citizens that own it in order to clear way for larger projects like railroads and, in 1947, freeways. But in order to get the most money from the land, they need houses on that land, and the houses need to be seen as expensive. So Monroe enlists California Fire and Life to insure the houses for large amounts, knowing they were made with shoddy materials. The police chief and mayor help keep things under wraps and uses Cole Phelps' affair with German singer Elsa Lichtman, discovered by his former partner Roy Earl, to divert unwanted attention from the project. But in order to maximize the profits, they need all of the parcels of land in the path of the Wilshire Freeway. Monroe starts a prize campaign for the holdouts not selling their houses, giving them free trips to Catalina Island and getting them out of the house for a weekend. Fontaine, the psychiatrist, uses one of his patients to tamper with the water heaters and cause fires while they're away, forcing those who lose their houses to sell for pennies on the dollar back to Monroe. The problem is some of the holdouts don't leave and are burned alive in their homes, which leads Cole Phelps and Jack Kelso to begin their investigations. In summary, Elysian Fields builds matchbox homes in the path of a new freeway, has an insurance company value them to increase the land price for when the government buys the land, and everyone gets rich while the US government foots the bill. While the game ends before we find out what happens to the plans, we can assume that the corruption was swept under the rug using the deal the new district attorney made with the police chief in exchange for Kelso's silence, as all of the main players in the Suburban Redevelopment Fund are present at Cole Phelps' funeral. The highway is built, the payouts are made through eminent domain, and Monroe, the mayor, the chief of police, and the insurance company gets rich, all while avoiding the ire of the public because the LA Times editor is on the board. A twisted tale of corruption, deceit, and lies that leads to a dead detective and the city of Los Angeles changed forever. Now this is what LA Noire proposes is the sinister nature behind the Los Angeles freeways that were eventually built through the Wilshire area. It's very fitting for the film noir style and makes for a fantastic final act of the game. But what actually happened is, in my opinion, even more sinister and evil than what the game portrays. So one last time, let's head back in time to 1934. Our president, Franklin D. Roosevelt, has just implemented the New Deal, a wide-sweeping collection of federal projects and programs intended on relieving many Americans hit hard by the Great Depression. After a set of economic and labor-centered bills in the first New Deal, the second New Deal saw the creation of the FTC, FCC, NLRB, AAA, CCC, SEC, and pretty much every other letter of the alphabet. One of these acts was the National Housing Act, which gave Americans buying power to own their own homes while ensuring they don't go into debt with the creation of the 30-year mortgage and implementing low fixed interest rates. But since the government was now responsible for making sure people paid their mortgages, as they had fronted the cost to developers and real estate industries, they set up the Homeowners Loan Corporation, created by the Federal Housing Administration to ensure that people didn't default on their loans. The Homeowners Loan Corporation drew up maps in all major cities in America to determine who to give loans to, aka high-risk or low-risk neighborhoods. They created 4 zones. Green was highly desirable, blue was still desirable, yellow was declining, and red was a detrimental area. This process was soon known as redlining. While there were other factors that caused an area to become red or detrimental area, the major criteria was race. According to the racial provisions of the FHA Underwriting Manual 1938, marking of yellow or red came from a presence of, quote, inharmonious racial groups, end quote. While most neighborhoods that were redlined had white populations, some even as much as 85% white, most red neighborhoods had large black populations and foreign-born residents. Out of every zone created in America in 1939, only 6 majority black neighborhoods were ever classified above the red zone. So what did this classification as a red zone mean for the residents living there? For starters, they were completely locked out of the loans offered to white and affluent Americans, completely denying them the ability to purchase their own homes. If they already had homes, they were denied refinancing options as well. One of the most significant ways an American could accumulate wealth in America in the 40s and 50s was homeownership, and it's one of the largest prevailing reasons for generational wealth as a result. So this didn't just affect the individuals, it also affected their families and children. Schools are also funded by property tax, and if the properties in the area are valued less because the landlords don't want to own properties there, land values plummet and taxes collected affect the schools in the neighborhoods. As the people in these red neighborhoods get left behind, white and affluent residents move to green zone suburbs and start neighborhoods with covenants, completely legal bylaws that allow them to deny entry to people of color into their neighborhoods.
We were looking for a place to buy a home. We looked at Levittown, and we liked the homes here. We liked the advantages that Levittown seemed to offer in comparison to other cities. And we understood that it was going to be all white, and we were very happy to buy a home here.
Do you think a Negro family moving here will affect the community as a whole?
Definitely.
In what way?
I think that, well, the property values will immediately go down if they are allowed to move in here in any number.
What course of action are you going to follow?
I'll do what I can to help to get them out legally and peacefully. And as far as accepting them socially, if that's what you mean, I could never do that.
By the end of the 60s, over 98% of loans given out have been handed out to white borrowers. After Martin Luther King Jr.'s assassination in 1968, along with civil unrest against segregation and racism, a series of acts are passed as an attempt to placate some of the unrest. And one of those acts is the Fair Housing Act. While this act has been very rarely enforced today, it did relieve some of the problems people at the time currently faced, but did nothing for the previous 30 years of unfair loan approvals and racist neighborhood bylaws many people were still affected by. Redlined neighborhoods still had lower property values, which led to less money for their schools. Those neighborhoods were usually closer to industrial plants and undesired areas near freeways and processing plants that affected the health of the community. Many of those neighborhoods had less access to fresh groceries, clean drinking water, well-paved roads. The list goes on and on. But the fact remains that these effects of redlining didn't disappear with the bandaged solution of the Fair Housing Act. Wait, weren't we talking about freeways? Wait. Wasn't this video about LA Noire? Yes to both. The reason I bring up redlining is because I wanted to show you the real version of LA Noire's corrupt and crooked Los Angeles. Here is a map of Los Angeles circa 1938, 1 year before the Homeowners Loan Corporation drew up their zones. Now here is that zoned map from 1939. As you can see, most of LA Noire's map is actually designated as either yellow or red. Now, let me overlay a few lines. This is the Hollywood Freeway, or the 101, that opened in 1954. This is the Arroyo Seco Parkway, or the 110, which was considered the first freeway in Los Angeles and opened fully in 1953. This is the Santa Monica Freeway, or the 10, opened in 1965. This is the Santa Ana Freeway, or the 5, that opened in 1956. This is the 405, known as the 405, and it opened in 1963. And these are the 710 and the Century Freeway, which opened in 1965 and 1993 respectively. And here's what that looks like in our game map. In-game, the freeways are referenced throughout most of the desks.
So this is what all the fuss is about. Why couldn't they build a freeway that goes past my place?
They haven't even approved the money yet, kid. The bond issue won't be till December. It'll be years before any of this will happen.
The Whitnall Freeway that LA Noire alludes to was an actual freeway plan in the 1930s. They even carved out the area to build the freeway. But the plans of running a tunnel between the San Fernando Valley and Hollywood stalled in the mid-30s, and the freeway plans were abandoned. You can still see the remnants from space. It's pretty cool they added the detail of an actual freeway plan into game. Even the map on this wall is a real map from the Regional Planning Commission of Los Angeles 1947. They even have the ridiculous "Help Conserve Human Life" tagline on it. But overlaying the map found in game with the 1942 proposed Whitnall freeway plans, they don't really seem to line up with each other. It's closer to the current day Hollywood freeway, but still doesn't follow any specific real-life freeway path. The Los Angeles freeway system had been proposed back in the 20s, and a small section of freeways had been built through the 30s. But LA didn't have the money nor the legal right to build the huge network of freeways, which proposed using 4% of Los Angeles's land to build. In 1943, the Regional Planning Commission proposed the Hollywood Freeway, the Figueroa Parkway, which would become the 110, and the Sepulveda Parkway, that would become the 405. In 1941, LA passed the Street Vacation Act that allowed for eminent domain to purchase the houses along the Hollywood Freeway's path, and in 1947, allocated the funds through the Defense Highway Act. Citizens protested their homes being taken and destroyed, but the cries fell on deaf ears. The Hollywood Freeway started construction in 1948, and many of the buildings along its path in the downtown area were demolished to make room for the project.
The area you were showing me earlier downtown, we lost a lot of that through the freeway coming in, just ripping out most of our history there because they were old buildings. The idea of an awful lot of people is get rid of them. And they just took it by eminent domain and ripped it apart. It's gone. That's what happened with Chinatown, too, when they put Union Station in there. It was considered to be a place where crime was. It was awful, it was dirty, and it wasn't. But that's what everybody looked at it as, because there was prejudice. And so let's get rid of it. We're going to have to put that station somewhere if everybody agrees we should have a station. So let's just get rid of that part of town.
There is no better example of prejudice through eminent domain than the Los Angeles freeways. An overwhelming majority of the houses bulldozed to create Los Angeles' network of freeways in the 40s and 50s were through yellow and red neighborhoods. Through redlining, Los Angeles built their freeways using eminent domain on quote-unquote low-value properties to save money. But what isn't seen is the thousands of houses demolished, communities ripped apart, neighborhoods destroyed, and the people who are left behind with the road noise and pollution from the passing cars and trucks. Central Avenue, which makes an appearance in game, is one of the many examples of a neighborhood affected by the LA freeways. Black neighborhoods along the Central Ave corridor, what is known today as South Central LA, had a booming industry of black-owned businesses, hospitals, movie theaters, markets, and various jazz clubs. Club Alabama was among its most famous and was a hub for jazz artists like Lionel Hampton, Billie Holiday, and Louis Armstrong. Central Ave saw a decline in the 50s after the opening of the 110 freeway, just 5 blocks away, which cuts straight through the predominantly black neighborhood. Traveling down Central Avenue today, you would hardly know that it used to be a vibrant hub. Club Alabama is gone, and the building is no longer standing. The Dunbar Hotel is now a retirement home. The Lincoln Theater is now a church. Sugar Hill, another prominent black community, was erased by the 1960s construction of the Santa Monica Freeway. In 2012, LA designated the area south of the freeway as a historic district. There is no concrete data to show exactly how many people have been displaced by the freeways, but an estimated 10,000 families have lost their homes in the past 30 years alone from freeway widening efforts, which have been definitively proven to not help with traffic congestion. An estimated 2.5 million people live within 1,000 feet of a freeway in Los Angeles, and the air quality was 4 times worse than that of areas not near freeways. The University of Southern California did a study and found that, quote, children growing up near major roadways have had higher rates of asthma and other respiratory illnesses, including deficits in lung function that can be permanent and lead to a lifetime of health problems, end quote. Communities affected by redlining and eventually the freeway system in Los Angeles still show the scars today. But don't just let me tell you about it. Our friend Alan had his home taken and demolished for the very same freeways that LA Noire cautions about.
My family lost its home in the San Fernando Valley. We were living under what is now the inbound fast lanes of the Ventura Freeway. They took our house. It was a good place to put it, though. It was not the wealthy area of the valley.
Alan clarified in a follow-up email that he moved there in 1946 and the house was taken by eminent domain in June of 1957 during the construction of the Ventura Freeway or the 101. The house was sold, taken off its foundation, moved to a lot, and sold to a separate buyer. The next time he visited the area, the foundation was all that was left and was soon buried under the Ventura Freeway.
Everything around us was rural. Orange groves and walnut groves, and the street that we moved in on was a dirt street. I like to tell people that the Los Angeles River, which is now a channel that's paved, I used to fish and swim in it. And our home was not anything spectacular. It was a low-end house, and so were most of them around us. It did split the neighborhood, hurt some people whose homes were not taken because now they're living next to a freeway. My parents were upset that they thought the house was worth more than they got, but they couldn't fight it. The woman next door had a double lot. She had really a gorgeous yard. She grew all sorts of fruits, and it was just magnificent. She spent her whole time doing it. She was an older woman, and the house was much, much nicer than ours. And she felt that they just took her for a ride, and so she sued. And it went on for years and years. She did get a little more money, but ended up losing because of the cost of a suit and everything else. And then she passed away, actually, before she even got the money. It hurts people to have that done, but yet, look at all the people that use that freeway. I mean, it's important. It was important for the development of the area. So I don't think it's bad. It's just that there has to be some place it goes, and people are hurt.
Thanks again, Alan, for giving us a glimpse at what LA was really like back then. And don't get me wrong, Noire does a fantastic job of recreating the time and struggles of 1947. While I do think it could have done a better job of portraying the racial disparities and class struggles of the 1940s, there is no other game that does a more accurate and faithful job of bringing this time to life. So, was there a big conspiracy of LA mayor, real estate moguls, and police to create the freeways? No, it wasn't a conspiracy. It was in broad daylight and signed off by laws and enforced by the police and the state. Nothing was hidden.
We do things that match the needs of the moneyed people, the people that are going to do the construction and build the new stuff.
One final detail that the game has a subtle nod to, whether intentional or not, is the name of the real estate company behind much of the push to destroy homes and make money. Elysian Fields. Some sources say the name Elysian Fields is a reference to the play A Streetcar Named Desire by Tennessee Williams for its reference to Elysian Fields, a stop on a streetcar in New Orleans where the play is set. But another interpretation, and a more geographically sound one, is Elysian Heights, Elysian Valley, and Elysian Park, 3 neighborhoods in central LA. Before these monikers, the hill was called Mount Lookout for its scenic vistas overlooking Los Angeles. A small group of neighborhoods, Palo Verde, La Loma, and Bishop, that resided in the foothills became known as Chavez Ravine. It was home to 1,800 or so mostly Latino homes. It was created due to the housing discrimination Mexican Americans faced in the greater Los Angeles area. By the 1940s, the area wasn't built up like the rest of adjacent LA and still had some modest houses, some of them hand-built. In 1949, the American Housing Act was passed under Truman, and using it, the city began plans to build Elysian Park Heights public housing, or housing projects, which would include thousands of low-income housing, new parks, and schools. In 1950, residents of Chavez Ravine were given notice that their properties will be purchased through eminent domain to make way for the new housing projects. They would be offered the first spots in the building, making for an enticing offer for some. By 1952, most had sold their houses to the government for very low money in the hopes of getting access to the new units being built. When Norris Poulsen was elected mayor in 1953, he called the housing projects un-American and socialist, and alongside the Citizens Against Socialist Housing, or CASH, the project buildings plans were canceled, leaving many of the residents who sold with the promise of housing without homes. From 1951 to 1961, an ongoing legal and social battle called the Battle of Chavez Ravine took place, with residents refusing to sell, holding out, and keeping Chavez Ravine alive as they watched their neighbors' homes, now abandoned, being bulldozed by the city and even purposefully set on fire for training for the fire department. By 1957, only 20 families remained. Mayor Poulsen made a deal with Walter O'Malley and the then Brooklyn Dodgers to move to Los Angeles and offered the Chavez Ravine area as a site for their new stadium. But make no mistake, the people of Los Angeles had a hand in this too, as they passed the Taxpayer Committee for Yes on Baseball referendum, which offered Chavez Ravine to the Dodgers as well. And on May 9, 1959, on what became known as Black Friday to the residents, police and TV crews came out to the barrio to drag out the last holdouts including 63-year-old homeowner Abrana Arechiga and her 38-year-old war-widowed daughter Aurora Vargas out of their homes. These photos and videos became very searing images of the human cost to progress and development. Vargas was charged with 3 counts of battery and disturbing the peace, $500, and 30 days in jail. On September 17, 1959, a little over 4 months after the evictions, the Dodgers broke ground on ground that had already been broken, and the stadium was opened April 10, 1962, to a crowd of 52,564. The Dodgers lost 6-3 against the Cincinnati Reds. These moments in Los Angeles history help illuminate injustices faced by many people throughout its long history. Poor whites and people of color redlined, families displaced, lives and communities destroyed, history lost, quality of life diminished, all in the name of progress. Buildings demolished and replaced with parking lots for the cars that soon became the only way to get around LA, almost as if it was all done by design. But I think what LA Noire does so well is it not only paints a picture of what LA could have been, but also a warning for what it would become. It could have been a city of public transit, dominated not by the car, but instead by the streetcar. Instead of building freeways and more roads, LA could have prioritized its mass public transit, built dedicated lanes, and saved the crumbling red cars. LA Noire shows us an LA lost to the ever-moving march of progress, where buildings that saw the coming and going of 2 world wars were lost to parking lots. And it shows us the very real future that lay in store for Los Angeles, one ruled by the automobile, by the multiple-story freeways that clog up with traffic from 6 a.m. to 9 p.m., and ruled by the pollution and fumes that slowly poison the residents who live near it. It might not be on the surface, but one of LA Noire's biggest strengths is how much it pulls you into the world and gets you asking questions about the real Los Angeles. Did this really exist? Was that real? Did it really happen that way? There is no other media form like video games. No other type of media allows you to walk into a building that no longer exists or follow alongside a forgotten and erased part of history. And in LA Noire, history becomes interactable, malleable, fluid, where the choices you make matter to the story, and those stories might be based on a real-life event and set in a real-life location. It doesn't matter that the interior of the Hall of Records isn't accurate, nor does it matter that the red cars can't be ridden. And it doesn't detract from the game to know the real history behind the freeways of Los Angeles. LA Noire is an important historic preservation tool, regardless of its shortcomings. LA Noire is the only game I've played where it doesn't try to show you a reflection of our world, obscured by layers of irony or slightly changed names. It's a game that shows you our world as it was, to so much accuracy and pinpointed detail that there's no way to hide from what the game shows us. The very real problems that our world had then and still face today. I truly don't know of any other game that has ever done that, and I don't think that there will ever be another game quite like LA Noire. Thank you all so much for watching. This video took a ton of time to research, go through the archives, find the footage, and make sure that everything was as accurate as possible. If I did make any mistakes on any details, chime off in the comments, and after a few weeks, I'll pin a comment with all of the corrected information if it's needed. I will also have a linked Google Doc with all of my sources. Please go check out Alan in the documentary series The Hillside Strangler.
MGM Plus is screening the first of 4 segments of the Hillside Strangler case. I was Kenneth Bianchi's lawyer, so that was 5 years of my life.
I'll have it linked below. And I'll also be linking some resources on historic preservation in Los Angeles, some more information about the neighborhoods under Dodgers Stadium, and a link to the Southern California Railway Museum, a privately funded museum with the only working red car in existence. So, if you're in the LA area and looking for something fun to do for the afternoon, go check them out. Oh, and if you're watching this video right when it comes out or within the first few weeks, I'll be live on Twitch playing LA Noire and working on the next video. So if these history deep dive videos are interesting to you, come hang out with me on Twitch. Like the video if you commented on it, and comment that you liked the video. Thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. What's this? A cipher? PRYPZOFVB. Okay, H equals K, like in the Nicholson Electroplating Company case. Okay, let me carry the 2. The final code. Subscribe? Not this again.